You have likely wondered why some men command desire without trying, while others stumble through rejection, oblivious to the invisible forces at play. The answer, though simple in principle, is profound in execution. Women fall in love not because of charm, gifts, or fleeting words, but because of forces so subtle that only the rare man perceives them and the ordinary man dismisses as coincidence. In this moment, as you listen, understand this. The first of these forces is not something you can conjure externally. It is something you embody internally. It is the quiet gravity of presence, the unshakable calm that radiates from a man who has mastered himself before he attempts to master the world around him. Consider for a moment the world in which most men operate, a world of reaction, of need, of validation, sought and grasped desperately from every glance, every text, every interaction. She senses it immediately. It is a subtle vibration in your energy, an instinctual recognition of a man unsteady in his own mind. The rare man, however, moves differently. He is not anxious for attention. He does not grasp at approval. His world is contained, coherent, and unthreatened by the chaos around him. This is the first hidden reason she begins to fall: your emotional steadiness, your silent assertion that you are a man untouchable by the whims of circumstance, yet approachable in measured, deliberate ways. You may ask yourself, how does this manifest in reality? It is in the pauses you take before replying, the way your gaze meets hers without flinching, the subtle modulation of tone that conveys power without arrogance. She notices. Subconsciously, she senses that in your calm, there is safety. In your restraint, there is challenge. In your consistency, there is integrity. Women are instinctually drawn to what stabilizes their emotional world while simultaneously sparking curiosity they cannot name. Most men mistake attraction for attention, for charm, for flamboyant gestures. They do not understand that it is the quiet, measured man who triggers the hidden longing she feels even before she admits it to herself. This is not to suggest you suppress desire or emotion. Stoicism is not coldness, it is mastery. You feel, you perceive, you respond, but never react in a way that diminishes your own center. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. In her eyes, the man who embodies this principle appears larger than life, a figure both comprehensible and infinitely unknowable. She is drawn to him, not because he seeks her, but because he exists in a state of quiet sovereignty that she instinctively recognizes, and her mind begins to reward that recognition with fascination, attention, and eventually, desire. Now understand this. The first force alone will not make her fall entirely in love, but it primes her psychology. It creates the invisible framework upon which all further attraction builds. Without it, any external attempt at influence, gifts, compliments, playful teasing, falls flat, like water on stone. With it, even small gestures, casual words, or silent glances carry disproportionate weight. The rare man understands the leverage of presence. The ordinary man perceives only surface-level interaction and mistakes noise for effect. But the second hidden reason, equally critical, and often even less understood, is where the transformation of her perception becomes irreversible. This reason is behavioral observable, yet rarely recognized for the depth of influence it wields. It is the demonstration of high-value autonomy, the subtle yet relentless signal that you are a man who chooses your life, your standards, your time, and your priorities, and in doing so becomes irresistibly magnetic. Observe the difference. The average man becomes available at the slightest invitation, bending to whims, reacting to desire. The rare man acts from principle, from purpose, from an internal compass that is indifferent to manipulation, indifferent to fleeting moods, and anchored in long-term vision. She senses this immediately. It resonates with a psychological instinct older than words, older than conscious thought. Her mind is calibrated to recognize value, not performative gestures. She watches not for what you give, but for what you withhold. Not for attention you offer, but for attention you conserve. Not for charm, but for consistency and principle. Every choice you make that signals autonomy amplifies attraction, because she senses she cannot possess you fully, not because you deny her, but because you are never in disarray over her presence or absence. The effect is subtle yet profound. A woman's desire peaks not in response to pursuit, but in response to control over self. The quiet mastery that signals without words that you are a man who cannot be owned, only understood, and even then only partially. These are the forces the ordinary man overlooks, dismisses, or misinterprets. And here is the key. Once you internalize both, once presence and principled autonomy are no longer strategies but inherent qualities, her attraction becomes a reflection of your inner architecture, not a negotiation of external circumstance. You do not need to compel. You simply need to be. You do not need to chase. You need only inhabit the space of a man whose stability and sovereignty quietly demand respect, curiosity, and emotional engagement. By now, the tension should be building in your mind, because you realize these are not tricks or techniques. They are elemental truths about human behavior, about instinct, about psychology, and they require nothing of you but mastery over your own state. And mastery, once achieved, is invisible to her conscious assessment, yet undeniable to her subconscious recognition. Now you see it. The two hidden reasons she falls are not what most men imagine. They are unseen, internal forces that quietly shape desire and awaken love. In the next section, you will begin to see exactly how these two forces interact, layer upon layer, shaping her perception, her curiosity, and ultimately her emotional investment in ways most men cannot even conceive. You will learn the nuanced behaviors, the timing, and the philosophical underpinning that transform presence and autonomy into an irresistible gravitational force, one that triggers fascination before she even realizes she is experiencing it. You may have noticed by now that the first force, the unshakable presence, creates the foundation, but it is not enough to compel fascination on its own. There is an intricate dance between what she perceives consciously and what her instincts register subconsciously. Here, in the interplay between your internal sovereignty and her perception, the second hidden reason begins to assert itself, the demonstration of autonomy and high-value principle. It is not a tactic, not a performance, but a living proof of the man you are. She feels it before she can articulate it. She notices it in the spaces between your words, in the cadence of your routine, in the consistency of your standards. Autonomy is seductive because it signals that your life cannot be dictated by fleeting emotions or the unpredictable whims of others. Most men, desperate for attention, confuse availability with value. You, by contrast, operate from a different axis, a calibrated equilibrium between presence and independence. Every choice you make, the hours you guard, the ambitions you pursue, the silent refusal to validate the unnecessary, carries invisible weight. She notices the difference immediately. It is not the grand gestures, the compliments, or the pursuit that captures her curiosity. It is the man who refuses to relinquish himself, who moves with deliberate intent, who frames the world around him without being framed by it. Imagine a tree planted in rocky soil, roots deep and firm, unshaken by the wind yet swaying subtly with the rhythm of nature. She is drawn to that stability, but equally mesmerized by the subtle mystery it presents. You are that tree. She recognizes on a level she cannot verbalize that your calm is not fragility but mastery, that your distance is not indifference but command. Now consider the behavioral manifestations of this force in her perception. When she tests, teases, or attempts to provoke reaction, your response, or lack thereof, speaks volumes. The average man reacts, pleads, or over-explains. He reveals himself in ways that diminish the silent gravity he could have wielded. You, however, respond from principle. You maintain clarity in the moment, embody patience, and choose your engagement deliberately. She begins to measure her own emotional investment against your composure. This is where fascination begins to crystallize. The invisible calculus of attraction operates not in her conscious thoughts, but in the subtle physiological responses of the mind. Curiosity sparked, desire heightened, and the instinct to attach quietly engaged. At the same time, she's unconsciously reading the contours of your life. How you spend your time, the pursuits you prioritize, the boundaries you uphold. Each action communicates that you are the architect of your existence, and that your attention is earned, not given freely. The effect is profound. Desire, curiosity, and respect are layered upon each other in a subtle crescendo that she experiences before she names it. Here lies the Machiavellian undertone, not manipulation, but recognition of human nature. Influence emerges naturally when alignment exists between perception and reality. When your internal world is compelling enough to shape her experience without a word. You begin to see then that attraction is not a matter of performing externally, but of being internally. Stoic philosophy becomes the scaffold upon which this force operates. Emotional mastery, patience, and self-regulation are not abstract virtues. They are active, measurable signals that ripple outward and shape her subconscious responses. As you walk through your day, as you encounter challenges, setbacks, and social interaction, every micro-expression, every inflection of presence, every quiet choice reinforces or diminishes the architecture of attraction. She senses this on a level older than thought itself, wired into instinct. Stability signals reliability, autonomy signals value, composure signals dominance tempered with discernment. Now imagine her perspective as a field of subtle tensions and instinctual calculations. She notices the man who can carry himself without neediness, who maintains his course without disruption, whose words are precise and whose silence is intentional. She begins to project onto him qualities she desires: protection, guidance, curiosity, respect, and more deeply, the recognition that he is unconstrained by her approval, yet entirely aware of her presence. The ordinary man cannot perceive this interplay. The rare man inhabits it naturally. This is the second hidden reason she falls. Not what you do for her, but what you are in the world, independent, self-contained, unassailable yet perceptive, commanding subtle devotion without conscious effort. Behaviorally, this manifests in interactions that seem almost paradoxical. Availability coupled with measured scarcity. Engagement tempered by discretion. Empathy expressed through observation rather than over-explanation. She begins to track your energy, your rhythms, and her emotional responses calibrate in ways that feel organic yet undeniably powerful. You are no longer someone she simply knows. You become someone whose existence she must process, whose attention she values because it is not freely given, whose presence carries invisible authority. This tension, the pull between intrigue and respect, is what differentiates fleeting desire from the deep, persistent fascination that leads to emotional investment. Layered upon this is philosophical depth. She recognizes on a primal level the truth you embody without articulation. You are a man who has chosen mastery over chaos, presence over reaction, principle over impulse. As Marcus Aurelius would say, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. She is drawn not to rhetoric, but to reality. Her attachment grows because it is anchored in truth, invisible integrity, and in the silent but undeniable architecture of your internal world. Every step you take, every choice you make, reinforces this architecture. By this point, the tension within her perception is palpable yet invisible. She experiences attraction as a dynamic interplay of curiosity, admiration, and instinctual desire, layered upon your composure and autonomy. The two hidden reasons, the mastery of presence and the embodiment of self-directed principle, work together in a way that is almost imperceptible to her conscious mind, yet impossible to ignore. You are no longer merely a man she interacts with. You are a force that shapes emotional reality, a gravitational field in which her instinctive attention is drawn naturally, inevitably, and irresistibly. And this is where transformation occurs, not just in her perception, but in yours. To inhabit these principles fully is to realize that attraction is not earned, coerced, or negotiated. It is a reflection of your state of being. As you internalize these truths, the way you interact, the way you carry yourself, and the way you command your internal world becomes magnetic. Desire, curiosity, and emotional investment are no longer mysteries to chase. They are natural consequences of the architecture you have built. Now you stand at the threshold of understanding, where knowledge transforms into presence, and presence into an invisible gravity that reshapes desire. The first force, the unwavering calm, has established the foundation of perception. The second, the manifestation of autonomous principle, has sculpted fascination. Yet the culmination of these forces is not merely that she notices you or even admires you. It is that her instinctual and conscious worlds begin to converge, compelled by a rhythm you did not manufacture but simply embody. You become the axis around which her curiosity and attraction rotate, a silent conductor orchestrating tension, intrigue, and longing without a word or act of persuasion. In practical terms, this final layer is the orchestration of timing, energy, and selective engagement. You do not overwhelm. You do not appease. You are measured, deliberate, and observant, allowing her responses to reveal truths about her own mind and feelings. In her uncertainty, she begins to invest cognitively and emotionally, because the rare man, the one who embodies internal mastery and external autonomy, does not rush resolution. She fills in the gaps with projection, imagination, and desire. Her fascination is no longer a conscious evaluation. It is an emotional consequence of your architecture of being. The cinematic tension lies in what you withhold and reveal, in the subtle alternation between attention and absence. She senses boundaries and respect for your internal world, and this scarcity amplifies the gravitational pull. Every word, gesture, and glance becomes imbued with disproportionate weight, because it is framed by the invisible principles she already perceives. You are no longer an external actor. You are a vessel of pattern, principle, and presence. She cannot manipulate you. She cannot fully predict you, and in that mystery, attraction intensifies. Philosophically, this is where the Stoic and Machiavellian converge. Stoicism teaches mastery of self, clarity of action, and emotional sovereignty. Machiavellian insight recognizes that influence flows naturally when perception aligns with reality and internal consistency. You do not manufacture desire. You cultivate it by existing as a man whose reality is coherent, compelling, and autonomous. She senses the difference between authenticity and performance, and she instinctively aligns her curiosity and emotional energy with the man who radiates control without effort, authority without aggression, and stability without stagnation. Observe her reaction, not consciously, but in subtle shifts, lingering attention, repeated observation, slight recalibration of behavior around you. These are the echoes of the forces you embody, invisible yet undeniable. The rare man recognizes that attraction is not a negotiation, but a reflection of his internal state, mirrored in her perception. He does not chase, plead, or manipulate. He allows her psychology to respond naturally, guided by the architecture of his being. This realization, once internalized, transforms every interaction into a subtle, potent exchange of energy, curiosity, and alignment. Finally, understand the ultimate transformation. You are no longer measured by her words or her approval, but by the gravitational pull of your presence, the integrity of your autonomy, and the consistency of your internal world. She is drawn not to what you do, but to who you are. These are the two hidden reasons she falls in love, forces invisible to the casual observer, yet undeniable in their effect. They operate silently, shaping perception, curiosity, and emotional investment long before conscious recognition occurs. Now you carry the knowledge of forces older than social games, older than words, embedded in instinct, philosophy, and psychology. You know the rare man is not defined by charm, possession, or pursuit, but by presence that anchors, autonomy that inspires, and mastery that captivates. To internalize this is to shift the axis of your interactions, to become a man whose existence naturally evokes fascination, respect, and desire. And in this final understanding, you realize the power is not external. It is yours, anchored within, radiating outward. She falls not because you act, but because you are. And when you embrace this, attraction ceases to be a puzzle and becomes an inevitability, a natural consequence of the architecture of a man who has mastered himself.